Heart disease is the #1 cause of death worldwide, affecting more than 200 million people globally. Let me say that again. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death worldwide. And disease rates are on the rise, expected to increase by more than 10% over the next decade. So why is heart disease so prevalent, and why are the rates going up? To keep it simple, heart disease is where the blood vessels that supply vital organs like the heart become narrowed or blocked by plaque, leading to things like heart attacks, strokes, and even conditions like vascular dementia. This gradual plaque buildup inside the arteries is a process called atherosclerosis. This is largely a preventable condition, and there are some deep-rooted, long-held misbeliefs as to what drives this disease process. And today, we're going to set the record straight and reveal the real cause, and most importantly, what you can do to prevent it. The most common belief is that it's too much saturated fat in the diet that leads to heart disease. For decades, we've been fed that story, that if you eat foods high in saturated fat, things like butter, cheese, and red meat, it ends up clogging your arteries. Well, I'm here to tell you that just isn't true. In fact, there never was any solid science that definitively linked saturated fat intake with heart disease. Now, you might be saying, then how on earth could we have gotten that so wrong? Well, that's a longer story, perhaps for another day. But if you're interested, it goes back to the 1950s and involves the American Heart Association and a man by the name of Ancel Keys, and you can look up the rest. But another common belief on the cause of heart disease is that dietary cholesterol is the guilty party. Another false storyline. And if you're one of the millions of people in the world that still think that eating egg white omelets are the heart-healthy choice because the yolk contains cholesterol, then let me be the first to break the news to you. That myth has been disproven long ago, so you can bring back egg yolks into your diet. In fact, that's where most of the nutrition is when it comes to eggs. The real cause of plaque buildup in our arteries is something called inflammation. Our body, and more specifically our immune system, makes inflammation to keep us alive if we get an injury or infection. And when that happens, we need these inflammatory molecules to circulate through our bloodstream and recruit various other types of cells from our immune system to take care of business, to fight the infection, to gobble up the invading bacteria, or clear away damaged tissue from an injury. Inflammation is a vital process, and once it has done its job, it's supposed to switch off so that healing can begin. In fact, long-term inflammation that doesn't switch off, otherwise known as chronic inflammation, can cause collateral damage to tissues in the body, including our blood vessels. When inflammation is circulating throughout our bloodstream on an ongoing basis, even just low-grade inflammation, our body responds and tries to protect the lining of our blood vessels, known as the endothelium, by building up a layer of a waxy substance which we call plaque. And that plaque happens to be made out of cholesterol, which our liver produces depending on our body's needs. Cholesterol is a vital substance. We use it to build healthy cells, to produce hormones like testosterone and progesterone, and stress hormones like cortisol. We need cholesterol to make vitamin D, without which we have weak bones and a weak immune system. So vital is cholesterol, in fact, that all the cells in our body can make it. And in the case of our circulatory system, it actually serves as an antioxidant to protect the inner lining of our arteries and other vessels from the damage that chronic inflammation causes. And the longer that inflammation is circulating, the more the plaque builds up. And over time, that plaque buildup can calcify or harden. And if you're unlucky, a piece of that plaque can break free and end up blocking blood vessels and other parts of the body, like the heart or the brain or the lungs. And this can be life-threatening. In fact, for most people, the first they even know they have heart disease is when they have a heart attack or stroke. So the question is, what causes the chronic inflammation in the first place? Now, I've already mentioned that it's not saturated fat or cholesterol. Yes, our body uses cholesterol to make the plaque, but it's not the cholesterol that initiates the inflammation. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease is like blaming the police for the crime just because we find them at the crime scene. So we first have to look at the diet. What foods are inflammatory? Well, sugar and ultra-processed food, which make up a considerable portion of the Western diet today. These foods are highly inflammatory to the body, and they're certainly not foods that we evolved eating. So it's almost like the human immune system responds to these somewhat toxic substances by making inflammation to protect us. But sadly today, 50% of the British diet comes from ultra-processed food, which basically means that a huge percentage of the population are walking around chronically inflamed much of the time. Other things that contribute to inflammation in the body include stress, smoking, alcohol abuse, gut infections, and believe it or not, poor oral hygiene. There are post-mortem autopsy studies that have analyzed the plaque in the arteries of people who have died with atherosclerosis, and they found oral bacteria inside the plaque, suggesting that infections in the mouth can drip feed bacteria into the bloodstream that trigger the immune system to make inflammation. So if we want to avoid plaque building up in our arteries, how do we do it? Well, it starts by living an anti-inflammatory life most of the time. At a basic level, we're talking about minimizing the things that cause inflammation in our body and maximizing the things that lower inflammation. So what does that look like? Well, firstly, if you're a smoker, consider doing whatever you can to stop. Smoking is one of the most inflammatory things we can do to our body because the chemicals and toxins in cigarette smoke cause inflammation to circulate throughout our bloodstream. I'm not saying it's easy to quit, but it's important if avoiding heart disease is the goal. It could also mean taking a good look at the stressors in your life, and most importantly, how you're reacting to them. Chronic stress can be inflammatory, so maybe there are some changes that can be made to lower stress. And how about the health of your gut? If you've ever had a bout of food poisoning, or you've taken antibiotics several times in your life, or you've had a lot of stress, all these things can disrupt your gut bacteria, leaving imbalances or even ongoing gut infections that can trigger ongoing inflammation. So it's another important thing to consider. And as for good oral hygiene, who would have thought that the health of our mouth is related to the health of our cardiovascular system? The simple habit of brushing our teeth twice a day and flossing every night can literally be life-saving. And if you think you may have a tooth or gum infection, we now know that the toxins from an oral infection absolutely get into the circulation and can cause the inflammation that initiates that plaque buildup. So in this case, avoiding your dentist is probably not the best idea. So how does diet play a role in inflammation? Well, firstly, we can start by reducing or eliminating inflammatory foods, such as cheap vegetable oils. You know the ones you find in clear plastic bottles, often with yellow lids? These are industrially processed seed oils that are stripped of any valuable nutrition, and they're really quite inflammatory to the body, especially when we heat them up, which is usually why people buy these oils in the first place, to fry foods with. These oils are high in omega-6 fats, which are easily damaged by heat. And when we fry foods with these oils, we increase inflammation in our body. It's far healthier to use more stable oils, such as extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, organic grass-fed butter, or ghee. These oils can take a higher heat for a longer period before being damaged by oxidation. Or better still, you can use water to gently steam foods, which is a far healthier way to cook. The second food category that we should minimize to lower inflammation is sugary foods and drinks, as well as things made of flour like breads and cereals and cakes and biscuits. A little now and again is one thing, but when they feature at every meal, toast for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, pasta for dinner, and on, these foods elevate our blood sugar more rapidly than, say, protein, fat, or foods high in fiber, like vegetables or legumes. And chronically elevated blood sugar is quite inflammatory to the body. And this is why individuals with diabetes are at a higher risk of heart disease. But more importantly than the foods to avoid, it's what we include in our diet to lower inflammation that can have a big impact. And there are lots of foods that have an anti-inflammatory effect that we want to try and include in all of our meals. And one of the best places to start is with colorful fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about all the colors of the rainbow. Dark green vegetables like broccoli or spinach, yellow peppers, orange carrots, red raspberries, purple blueberries, and on and on. The rainbow-colored pigments that give fruits and vegetables their color, apart from all the nutrition they provide, help to lower inflammation in the body, and they support a healthy gut and a strong immune system. It's also important to include healthy fats in the diet. And this is where we got it very wrong in the 1980s, when governments around the world advised people to lower the fat in their diet to prevent heart disease and obesity. But unfortunately, as people hopped on the low-fat bandwagon, that ended up driving people to consume more carbohydrates instead of fats, and it actually increased obesity rates and heart disease. But as I've already mentioned, I'm talking about healthy fats like extra virgin olive oil and the essential fatty acids found in nuts and seeds, and especially the omega-3 fats found in fish, particularly the oily fish like salmon and mackerel and herring and sardines. Omega-3 fats have really strong anti-inflammatory properties, and we should try to include these fish in our diet between 2 to 4 times a week. And if you're a vegan and you don't eat fish, you might want to consider a vegan omega-3 supplement just to ensure you get enough of these important anti-inflammatory fats. So that's how you can prevent heart disease. And you know something else? Since inflammation is at the heart of almost all disease, living an anti-inflammatory life also helps to prevent most other chronic diseases. So you really can't go wrong. Let us know your thoughts on on living an anti-inflammatory life. And please share this video with people who might benefit. And if you appreciated this content, please give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and ringing that bell. We'll see you next time.